Welcome, everybody. My name is Mina Jane, and I'm the director of the Ashland Public Library, and I'm really excited to be here for our next What's on Your TBR Pile with author Maurene Goo, who I will introduce in just a minute. Just a couple of things I wanted to say first. One is that our partner from Framingham Public Library is here taking notes, so you don't have to worry about note taking. I will send out a recap after the event. We are live streaming this on Facebook where you can ask questions, and we are recording this so that you can watch it later if you'd like to. I'd like to thank the Friends of the Ashland Library who support all of our programming. We couldn't do all this fun stuff without them. So now I move on to Maurene Goo, who I just love. She is the queen of K-drama in my world with books like, The Way You Make Me Feel, and Somewhere Only We Know, and I Believe in a Thing Called Love, and lots of exciting things coming up for Maureen, including, I know that she has a comic book series out and a TV movie link coming out too. So we'll be talking about all of that, right, Maureen?
Yes, I'm ready to chat about everything.
Excellent. So let's start with the TBR stuff first. So what have you been reading lately that you have really loved?
So many books. I actually, I'm usually pretty sad that I don't get to read as much as I want to, but I have been actually reading a lot. So I just finished these two books. Let me bring them up. I have these piles here. I just finished The Unsinkable Greta James. Jen Smith, who is a YA author, but she, this is going to be her debut adult novel. It's not out yet. It's out in 2 weeks, I think. So the 12th, maybe it's more than 2 weeks. I can't do math, but I believe it's the 12th. Whatever Tuesday sounds like closest to that date, that is when it comes out. I love it. It's about a musician. She's like an indie rock star whose mother passes away, and she goes on this cruise with her Alaskan cruise with her dad, who she kind of has like a, kind of a tense relationship with. But it was the cruise that he was supposed to go on with her mom. So, it's kind of about their relationship, her own struggles in her career. And then there is a bit of romance in it. And it's just really, I don't know. I just felt like it was so cozy and well-written and fun to go on this Alaskan cruise when none of us can really go anywhere. And let alone, people can go on a cruise, but I would not want to do that right now. And then I just finished 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I love this so much. I had been meaning to read this. Everybody has been talking about it. But it's just, one of the books that like I didn't get around to till recently. It's described as a romance, and it definitely is, but it's not the rom-com that, there's like a lot of great rom-coms that are out right now in adult contemporary fiction, but to me, it felt a little more angsty too. Sorry, please excuse my screaming toddler in the background. So it's a romance, second chance romance. So these two met when they were in high school, and they're both authors. One writes erotic vampire fiction, and the other writes like literary stuff where he's like the darling of the literary world. And they meet up 10 years later. I think it's 10 years or more. And they start up their romance again. And it's just really, there's a lot of heavy stuff in there that I thought was handled with a light touch, which I appreciate because that's kind of my sensibility as a writer. So I love when I can read something where I'm like, oh, they're doing a lot, but they're not making it feel too heavy. So funny. This book made me laugh so hard. And the romance is super, like a real romance level romance. But
so a little bit of steam there.
Yeah, a little bit of steam. And, and I just feel like it's another example of like, Black love stories that it's not about, it's just like kind of joyful, even if it's dealing with tough matters. And I feel like it just feels so like you're in this world of Black literary New York. And it's just really cool to get a glimpse into that too.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, so those two are like really recent reads. and I love them both. And I'm kind of like in an adult book headspace right now because I'm working on my own YA novel. And when I'm in that zone, I don't really like to read a lot of YA. It's just so that I can have a bit of distance from, I want to keep my eyes on my own paper. Yeah.
But when you are not writing, well, I can't imagine you not writing, but like, do you have YA authors that you just go to as like, they're just ones that you always go back to?
This is a tough question for me, and only because it's like at this point in my career, I have so many really great friends that are YA authors that I mostly read my friends' books because I am helping like beta read or critique, or I'm blurbing, or it's like, it's stuff that is almost part of my work or friendships. So if I'm being really honest, I have not perused a YA bookshelf and picked up something that just for fun. Like this is a book I would read for fun, which I used to do in the past, but I will say that like what I really have been intrigued by and I want to read are these 3 books, because I do like a lot of the mysteries and stuff out there right now. But I also still love contemporary fiction. So I have That Weekend by Cara, who is a good friend of mine. She writes really great mysteries / thrillers that I think are so smart, and just her writing is so clean, and she's super talented. And I love a good mystery. So this is That Weekend, her recent book. And it was a YA book club pick for BNN, actually.
Would you describe that as sort of like a cozy mystery or a thriller or a?
I don't think it's cozy. It's a little more, has a little more teeth than that. So, if you can see, this cover has like blood splatters on it.
Yes.
I think it's about a group of friends or a couple friends. Yeah, she goes with a group of friends on a hike or a weekend getaway camping trip. And then she wakes up and she's covered in blood and she's the only one. She'll survive. So it's kind of like what happened that weekend. So it's more of a thriller, I think. Cara McManus blurbed it. It's kind of in that vein, maybe. Another mystery, I'm sure you've all heard of it, is Firekeeper's Daughter. I got this when it came out, but it's like a hefty book, and I really want to be able to sink my teeth into it. And I know it's like a mystery too, which is really fun for me. So we share an agent. So I've always been excited to read this. It's been on my radar, and then it won every award it could possibly win and been on the New York Times bestseller list for so long. So I'm very excited to read Angeline's book.
Now that one is, the characters are very diverse, right? Like is it Native American?
Yeah, she's a Native writer, and it's about a girl who is half Native, half white, I believe. I could be wrong. Maybe she might be full Native background, but she lives on a reservation. So it's a mystery told in that teen setting, which, it's very unique. It's sadly just not been a voice you hear that much in YA. So, I'm very excited to read this one. It just has a lot of great buzz for it, and I think it'll be great, and it'll hopefully inspire me. And then the other book is by Margot Wood Fresh. So I'm also friends with Margot, and Margot's been in YA for a long time. She used to run Epic Reads. So she's kind of like a trailblazer with making these relationships with YA readers. So a lot of publishers all have their own kind of Epic Reads now. They have like a teen kind of social media aspect. So Margot is like awesome, and she helped launch so many YA careers, and she finally wrote her own YA debut novel, Fresh, which came out last year, I believe. And so it's been on my list forever. I also love that she doesn't have a book jacket. It's just like designed on the hardcover, which you rarely see in YA. So I know this is going to be really funny. Margot's really funny, and it's set in college, I believe. So it's a little older. It's about freshmen, and we both went to the same school. I went for grad school, but she went for undergrad, Emerson. And I think that's where this book takes place.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, look that one up.
And then there's another book, another author who I love, and she is a good friend of mine. So I feel kind of like funny saying it, but I actually love her books. And I aspire to be able to write even an iota with her talent, Courtney Summers. So she wrote Sadie and The Project and a ton of other books actually. But Sadie is kind of the big breakout book for her, and people talk about it. And she has a new mystery / kind of thriller, queer love story coming out called I'm the Girl. So that's coming out this September 13th, I believe.
I'll have to look that up too. For some reason I feel like I've read her books, and I'm sure I have. Sadie sounds so familiar to me.
Staple of contemporary YA fiction, you know.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So Judy, who I know runs is part of a Korean drama book club, wants to know what your favorite K-dramas are.
Okay, I have a lot, but the ones that I always go back to are Goblin, which is a fantasy epic. Oh, so good. So romantic, so funny, so like sprawling. And this other one called Healer, which it's not one of the more popular ones. I don't even think you can watch it on Netflix at the moment. And it was available at one point. You might have to go to Viki or one of the other K-drama streamers. But Healer is so good. It's like I love action. So it's action, mystery, really good romance. Well, every K-drama I like has a romance, to be honest. Oh, you know what? No, there's another one I love called Signal, which doesn't have romance at all in it. But it's a mystery with I love the concept because I kind of love things with a supernatural twist too. And it's about a detective who discovers an old like two-way radio, and he's talking to this man, and he realizes the man is a cop from the past, I think the 80s or 90s. And so he's going to help him solve his murder. Yeah, because he gets murdered. Really good. Yeah, those are the top three that I really like. But you know, I really love the new ones that are out on Netflix, like Crash Landing on You, which is a lot of people's favorites. And what did I watch recently? Startup, I thought was really cute. Oh, and actually there's one that is kind of under the radar, and I think everyone should watch it if you like K-dramas. It's also not a romance, but it's so good. It's called Move to Heaven, and it's about a kid, he's like probably 20, who has who's on the spectrum, and his father took care of him, his single dad, and then his father dies, and they run this business together where they clean up dead they kind of look after them, pack up all their stuff, and like organize the final possessions of the dead who don't have family or somebody to do it for them. And then so every episode kind of deals with a different, you know, client who has passed away, and you learn about their lives. But then there's also this overarching arc about the kid and his uncle. It's so good. It's just so well written, beautifully done, and like so emotional, which all K-dramas are very emotional.
Yeah, and fun. I think that's, you know,
they're just
really fun too.
Cliffhangers are never boring.
That's right. So Judy says that her Facebook group loves Healer, and it's a yearly viewing for her.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. I feel like nothing is as good as Healer. Every time I try to watch a drama, I'm like, oh, but it's not Healer. Yeah.
I was like that with Harry Potter. It's not Harry Potter.
Oh yeah.
No. Judy also wants to know, and it was one of my questions, is how did you get inspired to write YA? Who was your inspirations?
Yeah, I loved reading as a kid. So the books that I loved as a child and as a teen are the ones that really stuck with me. And, and then I became a huge reader because of the insane amount of reading I did growing up. And so, I went to college to study communication because I thought I wanted to be a journalist because I liked writing. And I thought, oh, there's only like one real job. It's just, I didn't know that there are all these other jobs you can do as a writer. I just assumed, well, like writing, I guess I'll work in media, I'll be a journalist. And then I quickly realized that was not my thing in college. And so after I graduated, I had like a minor in English literature because of course I kept going back to reading and wanting to talk about books and write about books. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to work at a bookstore. I have no other skills in life. So I'm going to just talk about books, which I love. Again, I didn't even think about being a librarian, which is an obvious job too. But while I worked at this bookstore, I started reading a ton of the books there. I used to work at Borders, which no longer exists, but it was like a Barnes and Noble of my youth. And it was really cool because you got to read whatever, you could borrow books like a library for 2 weeks at a time. So I read so much when I worked there, and I read a ton of David Sedaris. So I discovered David Sedaris, who writes these, really funny, really kind of darkly funny and poignant essays, memoir type things. And I read his stuff and I was like, oh, I think I want to write stuff that feels more personable, like personal and voicey. And he manages to make these small life moments feel so interesting, right? So I was inspired by that. And I started doing a lot of kind of essay writing and blogging, kind of using I was very inspired by the way that he wrote. And then working at the bookstore too, I was constantly placed in the kids section because they're like, oh, Maureen knows like any customer that has a question about kids books. Like I was the one that would be happy to answer and help. And so during that time, I realized, oh, maybe I want to work in children's book publishing. A friend suggested that as a job for me. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that was a thing. And so I went to grad school at Emerson to study publishing.
Mm-hmm.
But I had applied to a bunch of different colleges, grad school programs. One of them was a children's literature writing program at New School, and which is where David Levithan teaches. And I also didn't know that. I didn't even know anything. I was just like, well, this seems like an interesting program. I'll just apply for fun. And the sample that I wrote ended up being my first novel. But I didn't go to that program. I got accepted, and I was like, this seems impractical, just like as from a Korean kid standpoint. I'm like, I don't know if I can tell my parents I'm going to move to New York City to write for children and pay X amount of money for that education. And so I went to study publishing, but the whole time I loved this this chapter that I started. So I just kind of worked on it, tinkered on it, and I finished it while I was in school for my last class, which was an independent study that I could design. And I did it so that I could finish editing and writing this book and package it. Like I designed a cover and I did all that stuff, and it was really fun. And the way that I found my voice with this character was while I was working on the applications, my cousin bought me a birthday present, and I was 23 at the time, which now I'm like baby, but at the time I'm like, I'm old, I'm 23. And she got me the Princess Diaries because she's like, oh, you love kids books. And I was like, I'm like, how dare you buy me this pink book? Like, who do you think I am? And then I started reading and I was like, oh, this is what I want to write. It just hit me. Like, it's so funny. It's so warm. It's in this sweet spot of kind of writing that comes so naturally to me. And so kind of a mixture of Meg Cabot was a real inspiration for me because I had read like Gossip Girl at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It was just not my thing. I'm like, oh, these are cool, sophisticated stories of cool teens. I'm like, I want to read about like the really relatable teens. It's just a little more my forte at the time. That's what felt most natural to me. Now it's like, I feel like I'm expanding and write about all sorts of things. But yeah, I felt really inspired by that. And my grad school process was kind of what pushed me to write it. And, I took between graduating from grad school to being published, it was 5 years. So, it was a long process for me there. But it was kind of like almost unintentional on my part. I just kind of thought, let's try it out. Let's keep writing. And it happened. So yeah.
So that's amazing because I think Meg Cabot inspired a lot of us for a lot of things. I also think that we all miss Borders a lot. It was unique. Yeah. So what books have you read recently, or what book have you read or at some point, what book made you totally cry?
Oh, actually the book I just talked about, The Unsinkable, Greta James.
Yeah.
She's got this one story beat that if you read this, I think you'll understand. It's about her mom at her concerts that Jen beautifully kind of, she it's like a thread And then there was a really beautiful moment at the end of the book. But you know, it's about grieving in a not in an intense way, but it's acknowledging grief. And so obviously I knew I was going to cry, but it was the way she told it. It wasn't like, it's just sad. It was beautiful, you know, and really touching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have you read any books recently or at some point that really surprised you? Like you were like, oh, I did not see that coming.
You know, hold on. Did I bring it here? I wrote it on my, you know, because you sent me this question and I was like, oh, I have a good answer for this. What is it? Oh, yes, this book by what's his name? Kevin Smith. I'm sorry if I'm getting, but it's called Nothing to See Here. And it is an adult contemporary novel. And it was just so funny, but in this dark, and edit. Okay, so it's like a man who wrote this book, but the POV is a young woman who is in her early 20s, I believe. He captured this woman's voice so well. You know, I am loath to give a man too much credit, but I was like, oh, he did a good job. I was shocked that a woman didn't write it. It's so funny. And again, it's another book with like a supernatural twist in a contemporary setting that I found to be like really ingenious and really odd. And it's just a book that I was not expecting any of it. You know, it was recommended to me as like, oh, this is a good book. I was like, okay. And again, my book agency, you know, they represent him. So I got a copy from them and I read it over the summer and I was like, wow, this book is it's just one of the books that felt very fresh and different to me. And I was happy to have read it.
Oh, that's good. I'll have to look that one up too. Oh my gosh, my TBR pile is going to fall over.
Mine is that way.
So what about comfort reads? Who do you turn to when you're just in a slump or you just need to like do something to make yourself happy?
Yeah, I really like to read like several kinds of books for comfort. I love reading Regency romance novels. So, you know, that's the thing. I love reading all types of books. Romance novels, you know, obviously people say all sorts of things about them. But now they're having a bit of a moment, I think, where people are respecting them and just openly talking about how great they are. And I've always loved reading them because I am an anxious person. I have anxiety. And so reading is what kind of calms me down before bed, which is kind of when my anxiety kicks into high gear. And I love the reliability of a romance novel. And I especially love the historical ones because I just find all the, you know, the dresses, the country estates, the old-fashioned courtship stuff. It's so like, it's kind of like K-dramas, you know, there's like a old-fashionedness to it that I love. And, you know, you get a happy ending every time. Yeah. And so I love those. I love reading those on my Kindle, like literally just in my blankets. That's the best. I also love reading essays. So like collections of essays, you know, so I mentioned I love David Sedaris. I love, I just finished Nora Ephron's and I'm starting, and on my TBR pile is, you know, the Sludging towards Bethlehem by John Didion, which after she died, I realized, oh, I've read a lot of her essays in disparate publications, but I've never like owned or read a whole volume. So I really find essays very comforting because it's, they're voicey, they're short, they're like bite-sized, so you can kind of just dip in and dip out. So I really love that. And I also really like to read like not super cozy mysteries, but like kind of gentle mysteries. So I read the Maisie Dobbs books during the pandemic when I was pregnant. It was very comforting to read those. It's about a World War I detective PI woman in England, again set in like estates or like London, just like so like. And I read The Thursday Murder Club recently by Richard Osman. It's right there. Yeah, Osman. So yeah, it's about like a retirement community that solves murders. It's yeah. So yeah, I love like something that just feels gentle and not intimidating to like sink into, you know?
Yeah, I think it's hard to go into a Gillian Flynn as a comfort read, although
Yeah.
she's an amazing writer and everything.
People do. It's interesting. You know how some people during the pandemic wanted to watch Contagion? And I was
That's
like,
true.
what's wrong with you guys? But to each their own. For me, that would like send me into like a spiral. But for some people, like they like to be in kind of like other people have it harder. Let's be in like a way more grim world or life, and that'll somehow be like cathartic, you know? So
Mhm.
yeah.
I think that's a good point. I should say that I think those books are amazing, but you're right that people have different levels of comfort, and having that sort of fictional scariness is maybe
Yeah.
sometimes better than like real scariness.
Yeah, totally something I don't understand, but like I have heard that that is what that does for some people. I'm like, oh, okay, I can do that. But wow, for me, that is so stressful.
Hmm. So I wanted to just switch over to comic books since
Mhm.
we're going to be running out of time pretty soon. Do you have any suggestions for comic books? Because yours is like a Spider Woman type of series, right?
Yeah, so I wrote a 5-issue run last year for the character Silk, which is a
Mhm.
Marvel character, and Silk is a Korean American superhero that was bit by the same radioactive spider that bit Peter Parker. So it was just like it was so fun. When I got approached for it, I instantly was like, yes, not because I necessarily love comics. I have a very like light kind of understanding and readership level of comics. I'm not someone who's never read them because, you know, I used to read the comics in newspapers. I used to read Amazing Spider-Man. I watched every Marvel movie in the world. I watch even DC movies. Like I like superhero stuff. But I love particularly Spider-Man. Like Peter Parker is the comic book hero that I love the most. So to write it within the world of Spidey, and not only that, but like, oh, she's Korean American, like that is so, I would have never have thought that would this work could exist for me, you know, as a kid.
Mhm.
And so it was really fun. And I've always wanted to try writing comics. I'm very open to trying different things. And so it was a really fun experience. And unfortunately wasn't able to write this run just because my schedule, but a new run has come out, another 5-issue run, I believe, by Emily Kim, I think is her name. She's a
Hmm.
TV writer, same artist, Takeshi Miyazawa. So yeah, they're great. It was so fun.
I have to say the art in those books is
Oh, he's so
amazing.
cool. Mhm.
Yeah. Judy wants to know if your comics are translated into manhwa, a Korean manga.
Oh, I don't think so, as far as I know. I don't think so, but I don't know for sure. That's not something I've heard, but it's very possible, I guess, because it's Marvel and they have a big reach. So maybe they are doing something like that. I'm just not aware of it.
Hmm. I just want to say that I do love comics, and I think that like when I read Ms. Marvel, with the Pakistani,
Yeah.
the hero, it just made so much sense to me, and so I was really glad when I saw that you were writing Silk, because I just think that makes so much sense to me that
Yeah.
heroes are in every shape, form, background, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really nice, you know, that these are all out there for kids and, you know, adults too. But imagine if we had grown up with that as part of, instead of just Wonder Woman and Superman, you know, would have
Mhm.
been pretty cool.
But even like a Wonder Woman, at least it's a woman. you know.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Wonder Woman was like all we had, you know?
Yeah.
And she was, and I sobbed watching the Wonder Woman movie.
Me too. So we're just, like I said, about out of time, and I just wanted to ask you about what's happening for you next in terms of publishing, TV shows, movies, comics, all of that.
Sure. So I do have, like I mentioned, I am working on my next YA novel. It's called Throwback. It is coming out spring 2023, date to be determined because we are still working on it. I'm really excited. I love this book so much, and I worked on it during a very emotional time of my life, becoming a mother, being in the pandemic. the world changing. It's about a girl who is a Korean American teen living in LA, has kind of a, fraught relationship with her mother, like a lot of teenage girls do. And then they get into a big fight. And after the fight, she takes a ride share to school. And it's a little weird. And when she gets to school, she realizes she's traveled back in time and she's back in high school with her mom. So it's like Back to the Future, the setup, but the whole concept is, she's second generation, her mom's first generation. What did her mom go through to make her the way she is? And maybe what's going to get her back to the future? Like, why was she sent here? It's about mom daughter stuff. Is about intergenerational conflict traumas. It's about the immigrant experience and what does it mean to be American? What does it mean to have an American dream? What even is the American dream anymore? And it's all about high school and fun things. So that is all I can say about that. But it's going to come out next year, and I hope I will be, if you follow me on social media, I'll share every little bit of news I can share about that. And then I'm working on two of my books, I Believe in a Thing Called Love and Somewhere Only We Know, are being developed by Netflix right now into feature films. So I'm it's very cool. I'm an executive producer on both of those, which basically means I'm involved in shaping it and having it come together. And it's been really fun and exciting. And again, if the more news we have on that, I will reveal as soon as I can. Everything is about secrets when you're an author. And then I am also during the pandemic, I started working for Sony Picture Animation. So they're the animation studio that did Into the Spider-Verse, Mitchell's versus Machines, all sorts of things, right? But I am writing a animated feature film for them right now that is in development, and we do not know any other details that I can share. But hopefully that'll be something that comes together, and that will be in a phase where I can talk more about it. But that's been a learning process for me to learn how to write a movie, and not only a movie, but an animated film, which is a shift from my very contemporary, realistic young adult novels. It's been really fun. So I have been kept pretty busy.
Wow. You're from reading David Sedaris at Borders Books to doing what you're doing right now, it just sounds like such a journey, such an amazing journey.
It has been a journey, and I always tell people this, like, it always sounds so pat or like hollow when you tell aspiring writers, like, this is a marathon, not a race, or marathon, not a sprint. Whatever the one is. I mean, for some people it is. Some people right out the gate, they've got the huge book deal, movie deals, and it's great. Like, wow, cool. Like, you are in a very small percentage. For most of us, it's like you kind of just do the work, hope that people find your books, hope that, it's enough to like be, hopefully you are making enough money to keep doing it. And I don't know, for me, I think my career has been very fulfilling because I have found that my readers, when people find my books, my readers are so lovely. And so they like my books in a way that is so, to me, they connect with it and on a level, and then they're fun. I think reading should just be fun first, so that's why I love books. So that's kind of what I always want people to get from them. But it's been, I just feel very lucky. I know I put in a lot of the hard work. So I just want women to like stop just saying we're lucky. We also work really hard. But I have been very, very lucky in that I've had a lot of support in my life, and I've been able to keep going. And to me, it was all worth it. It's kind of like I'm finding everything that I've built is finally I'm seeing it happen, and it's really gratifying, and I feel so happy and excited about it.
Well, I'm happy and excited for you and for me because I love all of that. So thank you so much for doing this TBR Pile program with us. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I'm just going to be adding to mine like crazy.
Yeah, I mean, mine is always just uncontrollable. So it was nice to kind of like try to think of like specific books for this, you know?
Okay.
Focus, yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you. And thanks for whoever, all of our attendees, and to Nancy for taking notes. Like I said, I'll send out the Zoom link, not the Zoom link, the YouTube link at some, in the next day or so. And I just really, really appreciate you taking the time with us, Maureen.
Thank you, Mina. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I'm going to